Good morning, guys. So, today, as you see by the title, we're going to be talking about the spirit of fear. And I want to talk to you guys a little bit about where it stems from and how it impacts your ability to do the things that God calls you to, and how it's keeping you from preparing as He's called us to do in this hour, right? So, it all started last night. I was spending some time with God. And He told me, trust the Lord your God and lean not on your own understanding. I will direct your paths. He said, the righteous are saved by grace through faith. And so when I looked up that phrase, the righteous are saved by grace through faith, it led me to Habakkuk chapter 2, verse 4. And it says, behold, his soul is puffed up. It is not upright within him, but the righteous shall live by faith. And so I want to read you guys the commentary that was attached to that verse. A proud person relies on himself, whereas a righteous person relies on God. While the phrase his soul is puffed up refers primarily to the Babylonian in this context, it could include anyone who is proud. It will take faith to wait patiently for God's plan to unfold, but the righteous believe that God will accomplish it. God will accomplish it. I want to highlight that, okay? The phrase, but the righteous shall live by faith, is quoted in the New Testament to emphasize that people are saved by grace through faith and that Christians should live by faith. The kind of faith that Habakkuk describes as that the New Testament authors promote is continuing trust in God and clinging to God's promises, even in the darkest of days, okay? And then this morning in my devotional, it was talking about our thoughts and how we have to take our thoughts captive, because essentially when we partner with what God calls us to, or the assignments He gives us, right? It all begins in the mind. If you don't believe that God can help you bring it to pass, that it will be by His hand that you'll be fruitful in what He calls you to, then you won't have the strength to even move forward because of the spirit of fear. And actually, it led me to 2 Timothy 1:7. So I'm going to read that to you guys. And it says on 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 7, for God gave us a spirit not of fear, but of power, love, and self-control. Okay? And so, guys, where the spirit of fear really stems from is pride. Because pride develops when you rely on yourself. It's this sense of, I can do it. I'm good. I don't need nobody. That's where pride comes from, right? But when you step out of that mindset, when you accept God as your Lord and Savior, right? And you receive Him into your heart, and you surrender your will and your way, your life to Him, that means you're opening yourself to His ways, right? And God will call you to assignments and to do things that are way out of your ability to do on your own. And it's for a reason. He does this with purpose. It's one, because He wants to teach you that you have to depend on Him in this life, that you're not supposed to lean on your own understanding. You're not supposed to lean on your own abilities, right? Because that's how you get caught up in the world. That's how you develop pride, right? So He does that so you learn that you can depend on Him to see you through. And another reason why God will call you to assignments that you don't feel equipped for, that you don't have the skills or the diplomas or whatever it is because that's how He gets the glory. If the people who are in the world are watching your life and they see that God calls you to something that you were already built to do, they're gonna say, oh, well, it's because He had the skill. They won't give God the glory. They're gonna give you the glory. God is trying to show people His power and glory through you, right? You are just a conduit, right? Like in electricity, you need a conduit to move the electricity to whatever you're trying to connect to, right? You're just a conduit. It's not about you, but God will call you to something that you're not equipped to, right? Because in your inability, people will be like, oh, well, he don't have the skills, or she don't have the skills. She don't have the degree for that. She don't have that. But when you're successful in it, they will know, no, there has to be something greater supporting them through this. And they will know that it is God. Okay? And so this spirit of fear starts in the mind. Because if you're too focused on yourself and what you can do, you're not even going to take a foot forward in what God's calling you to, because it looks impossible. But if you take your minds off yourself and focus on who called you to it and understand his ability, which we all know is greater than anything we can ever truly fathom, right? God created all things. So if he's calling you to it and he's telling you, I've blessed you to take this walk, I'm the one who gave you this assignment, you're supposed to walk it out in power, in love, and in self-control, understanding that it's not about you. It's not about your ability. It's about what God can do through you. And so in this chapter 2 Timothy 1, chapter 1, right? I want to give you guys a little bit of back context. So this letter that Paul is writing to Timothy is a letter of encouragement to call him to pick up his mantle, right? And basically move forward in the assignment that God has given him. And I want you guys to understand, Paul wrote this letter of encouragement to Timothy while he was in prison waiting to be killed, okay? So if you have to really put this into context, look at Paul's mindset compared to Timothy's. Paul was in a devastating situation. He should have lost all hope, right? But yet he wasn't looking at his abilities. He was acknowledging who he serves, who called him to this call to preach the gospel, and that even though there may be times where he falls into dark days, knowing that it is the one who has called him to this assignment who will see him through, right? Because he says here in 2 Timothy chapter 1 verse 12, he says, which is why I suffer as I do, but I am not ashamed, for I know whom I have believed, and I'm convinced that he is able to guard until that day what has been entrusted to me, right? So he's saying essentially, yes, there's going to be hard days when I decide to pursue what God has called me to do, when I walk into the assignment he's given me. But I'm not ashamed of that, because I know that the one who has called me to do what he has called me to do will guard me and take care of the assignment he's given me and take care of me until the day of his return. Why? Because he's not focusing on himself and his abilities. He's focusing on the one who gave him the assignment. And because of that, he can sit in a prison and write a letter of encouragement to his brother and sister in Christ to walk in their mantles, to walk in their assignments, because he's not looking at himself and his circumstances. He's looking at the one who has called, the one who calls, right? He's looking at God. And God is really wants to address this, because he wants us to have that same mindset. And that as we walk into what he's called us to, as he's preparing us for these new breakthroughs, these new seasons of our life, right? He wants us to take our eyes off ourselves and focus on him. Because this journey is not going to be one that you can carry in your own strength, right? In the commentary to verse 12 on 2 Timothy chapter 1, I love it, because it says here, where he's talking about guarding what has been entrusted in me, that really means either God will guard what he's called him to, which was to preach the gospel, right? Or he will guard Paul's life, because when we surrender our life to Christ, we are giving him all of us. And so God will guard what we have given him. Remember, it's an agreement, guys. It's an agreement. When you come into Christ, it's an agreement. You're saying, God, I'm giving you all of me. And in return, I believe that you will be here, and that you will guard me, and that you will cover me, that you will guide my steps, right? Just like Abraham with the covenant, right? In Genesis chapter 12, verse 1 through 3. When he surrendered his life to Christ, God said, okay, I'm going to call you to go to a place that you don't know. And what did it take? It took faith. This covenant takes faith, right? It's understanding that, okay, I entrusted my life to you, so I have faith that you will see me through in this life, that everything you call me to, you will bless, right? And that does not mean you will not have hard days. You guys have to also remember that we're fighting against an enemy, and he does not want to see you succeed, because when you succeed and those watching you see, they're going to come to know, because you are a walking testimony of the King of Kings and his power. And so he's going to fight you. You're going to have dark days. You're going to have moments where you want to give up. up. You're going to have days where you're like, am I actually doing what God called me to do? But if you have the right mindset from the beginning and understand that it is not in your ability, that when God calls you to something that you don't look equipped to, that it is because he's going to bless it. If he's going to, and the end of it is going to be fruitful. You move forward with God confidence. And that's what it says here in the commentary. That either way, it is this confidence in God that prevents Paul from being ashamed. So prevents Paul from doing what God has called him to do. And for a lot of you, the assignment that God has given you doesn't look like a big title or what you expected, right? Or it doesn't align with the expectations that people have of you. And so you're afraid, you're ashamed to move forward in it because you're saying, well, what if I fail? What are people going to think? Or what if, and that's where that spirit of fear is cutting you in and keeping you from doing what God has called you to do. Stop thinking about your ability. Stop worrying about what people think or what people are going to say. Oh, this is not what people expected of me. This is not what I went to school for. It does not matter. When you give your life to Christ, it's not about you. He's trying to use you so that people around you can see that when God is in your life, it does not matter about your abilities. He will see you through to what he calls you to. It's not about you. That's why Paul's not ashamed that he has dark days when he's following the gospel, when he's following the assignment, that God gave him to preach the gospel. He's not ashamed because he knows eventually that he will see the fruit of it, right? And we are all testimonies of that, right? Because he was writing these letters and just following what God was calling him to do, not knowing that he would end up writing most of the New Testament that has blessed and helped millions and billions of people for years and years and years. Okay? We might not see the fruit of it all in this lifetime. Or maybe we will. But that does not matter. That what matters is walking in obedience because in understanding that God, who calls you to it, will bless it. Okay? So here at the end of the commentary, it says his boldness arises not from his own self-confidence, but from his God confidence, because he knows who God is. He knows, he looks at what God has done in his life. Because when God is preparing you to pick up an assignment that you're not prepared for, he's going to give you moments in your life before that to show you that he is faithful, right? So that you have something to look back on when he calls you to this new thing and you're just like, that spirit of fear kicks in. Automatically you could say, wait. I don't need to be afraid because I've seen God be faithful in here, in here, and here. Right? And if he's been faithful in the little, what makes you think he won't be faithful in the much? We understand that God gives us grace, right? And he blesses us for his name's sake. Again, not about you. It's not about us. He does it for his name's sake so that he can show others of his power and glory. So if he's already blessing you in the little, when you were hidden, when people didn't know, when you were walking with God and he was showing you, I'm faithful, I'm going to be here for you. When he puts you in the limelight and people are actually watching the steps that he's calling you to take, you don't think that he's going to show up even greater to make sure that people know, yes, I am God. Yes, I watch over my children. Yes, I protect them. Come on now. So God really wants you guys to take these thoughts captive. Because if you're not in agreement with him in your mind, you will not be in agreement with him in your life. Okay? And a lot of us are still stuck in the past because we want God to bless what we wanted, the road that we wanted to take in life. And he's trying to tell you, stop thinking so small. You're over here just trying to be stable and God's trying to give you a legacy. Stop thinking so small. And stop looking at your own abilities. Stop looking at what you can do. Don't let your own pride keep you from what he's trying to call you to do. It's so much bigger. It's so much bigger than your abilities and what you can do. What God's trying to do through you is so much bigger. So he's saying, do you trust me? You've seen my hand be faithful in the little. Do you trust me that I will be faithful in this? I know everybody's watching. I know it's not what you expected. I know you don't feel equipped. But do you trust that I will equip you? Do you trust that I will bless you? That even in hard days, I will see you through? Do you trust that I will make sure that I will dress you in royal garments for the world to see? You know that when Joshua was in the pit, if you think about it, God gave God gave Joseph, God gave Joseph a promise at the beginning, right? That he was going to be a leader, right? That his brothers would look to him. And throughout that entire journey, if you guys don't know the story of Joseph, I encourage you guys to read it. But during that entire journey with Joseph, that Joseph had, it looked nothing like what God promised him. Like, first he ended up going into slavery, but then he was favored by God, so he was able to be a slave in, one of the officials' houses. But then the wife of the official is basically trying to seduce the guy, and he's faithful to God. He doesn't fall into the seducing. He ends up being put in jail, okay? So now he's in a pit. He's still being faithful to God, using the gift God gave him, right? He tells the guys, their dreams, what it means. It ends up helping them get out of the pit, right? And he says, oh, remember me. They forgot about him. So it's just like, it does not look anything like what God promised him. But yet, Joseph continues to be faithful. He still continues to operate in the gift God gave him, right? To carry the mantle God gave him. And, to be able to discern dreams. And in the end, even though it doesn't look like what he expected while he's sitting in that pit, right? He believes that when he finally surrenders and understands that it's not about his own ability, but trusting in God who has called him to do it, who has showed him that he is faithful, right? And just relying on God, that's when all of a sudden everything shifts for him. He goes from being in the pit to in the palace in one day. In one day, y'all. Why? Because he let go of his pride. He let go of his pride. He stopped looking at his own abilities. Yes, God will give you, sometimes God gives us, spiritual gifts. And we get prideful even in that, in the assignments that God gives us. And we're like, oh, God says we're going to be a leader. Oh, God says we're going to prophesy. And, we let it get to our heads. And so it's like there's a refinement period before you actually step into what God calls you to. And for a lot of us, we went through that. That's what this whole season was for. Or we're probably still in it, right? For some of us, you're probably still in it. And that's what this whole season was for. He had to refine you first. And so as now that he sees that he's refined you, that you're no longer looking to yourself, right? You let that pride go. You realize, okay, God, if I'm living for you, I can't be looking at myself. And so now that he sees that he's where he needs you to be, now he's giving you the new assignment. Now you're like, ugh. But he's saying, look to me, child. I will guide your steps. I will guide your steps. I will direct your paths. If you focus on me, I'll get you there. There's so many stories in the Bible that relate to that. Even Peter walking out onto the water, right, in the storm. At the end of the day, God is saying, it's about me. It's not about you. And the way that you carry your mantle, the way that you walk, not with a spirit of fear, but in power and love and self-control, is by keeping your eyes on Jesus and believing, having this confidence that the one who called you to it will see you through it. So I really just pray this encourages you guys, okay, to step with full force, run to the things that God is calling you to in this hour, okay? Because there's a reason he's calling you to it now. It's about preparation. He's giving you guys new visions, new assignments. It may be, open a school, start a ministry. It may be starting a job that you've never experienced, starting a business. But it's because he's trying to bless you for what's to come, guys. He's trying to bless you for what's to come. Okay? You don't know if these assignments will be the very thing that carries you through during times of famine, during the dark days that might be coming, okay? God has been talking, and you guys know that if you guys been here with me, God's been talking about a coming calamity. And so he's preparing his children for that. These assignments, these things that he's giving you, these ideas that he's giving you, it's not for nothing. So run, hit the ground running with them, understanding that God will see you through as you go forward. Okay, he will send the destiny helpers, he will provide the provision. Okay, but he needs to see that you trust him by moving forward and agreeing first in the mind. You have to agree first in your mind that God is going to see you through it. Because once you agree in your mind that it's not about me, that God is the one who's going to be walking this out, like he's going to be the one directing me and guiding my steps, and you already understand that, that will give you that strength to break that spirit of fear and to move forward. Okay? So I pray this encourages you guys to run the race God has given you with faith, okay? It's gonna work out, y'all. And even if you got dark days, don't let that get to you, okay? Even if you have moments where you get stuck, remember, just run back to the source. Jesus, I need your help. What do I do from here? Guide my steps. And expect that he's going to answer you, because he will. Because he's already answered you in the past. So why would he not answer you now? I love you guys, and I hope you have a beautiful Wednesday, and I'll be speaking to you soon.